This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so looks like we're recording today, and when a problem like that happens, a lot of time they'll go and clear it up. They've been making adjustments and enhancing, but it's kind of when you add things to what you're doing, you can knock something else out. And as they've tried to update and everything, that's what happened. Okay, so we're working with activity-based costing, as its title said, allocating manufacturing overhead for two or more products. Allocating manufacturing overhead for two or more products. And we looked at an example where we had two products, product A and product B. The direct materials, product A was 4, direct labor was 5. And we were making 100,000. Okay, so that was the situation. Then we had product B, where direct materials were 3, direct labor 2, manufacturing overhead, the unit amount, total unit cost, and production quantity of 50,000. So as a way of review, suppose we were simply making product A. So suppose we are simply making product A, and the MOH for product A is 50,000. So suppose that we're simply making product A, and the MOH was 50,000. So based on your marvelous work in product costing, what would be the total unit cost if this were the case for product A? If we just were making product A, and then what is the selling price if the selling price multiple is 2? So I want the unit cost, total unit cost, and selling price if the selling price multiple is 2. As a way of review. Manufacturing overhead is 50,000. The production quantity is 100,000. Direct materials is 4. Direct labor is 5. Your total MOH is 50,000. So if this were the problem, what would be the total unit cost and selling price? Don't all speak at once.
Is it 950?
How'd you get 950?
4 plus 5,
Alright.
9. And then
And what else?
50,000 divided by 100,000 is 0.5.
Okay. Total unit cost would be, as indicated,
19.
950. What's our selling price going to be?
19.
19.
Okay. Everybody do that in inches. Okay, but suppose we have another product B. Direct materials 3, direct labor is 2, production quantity is 50,000. And so now the manufacturing overhead has to cover both products. So we've got total manufacturing overhead of 50,000. So now we got to do the same thing. We got to do the same thing. So how would you work this out now? Because you no longer have one, you've got two. How do things change? What we've got to do is with this MOH, we got to have come up with the MOH A. Then we got to get an MOH for B and follow the same format. So we got to come up with a way to get this MOH for A. Let's get this 50,000, have some of it for A and follow the same process to get the unit cost. Then we got to have some of this 50,000 for B. That's what we're trying to do. Does everyone see that? It's 50,000. We got to go and put some in here for A. Then we got to put some in here for B. And then we're going to go through the same process. And I think the selling price multiple for B is 3. So does everybody see what we're trying to do? So how are we going to allocate 50,000? And we said that there was a way to do that. And we're basing it on labor hours. Okay, so we're basing this on labor hours. And so I've given you the labor hours. Product A was going to have 60,000 labor hours, okay? Product B was going to have 40,000 labor hours. So the total labor hours is 100,000. So we're going to divide line 1 by line 4. And that's going to give us an activity rate. And that activity rate is going to be what? 0.5 or weighted average. Some of it we're doing weighted average depreciation. So the way we're going to allocate the cost is we look at the amount of hours in A, we look at the amount of hours in B, and we add them together. We get 100,000. We divide column 1 by column 4, and we get an activity rate of 0.5. Does everyone see that? Now we're going to bring down the hours. Then we're going to bring down the activity rate. And we're going to multiply the activity rate times the hours to come up with the overhead allocated for one and the overhead allocated for two. So 0.5 times 60,000 is how much?
30,000.
And 0.5 times 40,000 is what? 0.5
20,000.
times 20,000. So we've come up with a way to divide that 50,000 between A and B. We add all of the hours together. We come up with an activity rate, which is a weighted average, which is also, by the way, our POR of 0.5. And so now product A has 30,000 in overhead, product B has 20,000. So now we have the overhead. So now I want you to go back and calculate those unit costs. If the overhead for A is 30,000 and the overhead for B is 20,000. So your job now is to recalculate unit costs for A and then go through and get unit costs for B as selling price. Selling price multiple for two, for A is two, for B is three. Take a few minutes and calculate that for me and see if you can understand what we're doing. So are we where we need to be? Do we have a calculator? I'll give you a couple more minutes since those are complicated calculations. Now for product A, the 5 and the 4 don't change, but the unit MOH cost is now what?
That's 0.3.
It's going to be 0.3. So now our total cost is what?
0.3.
So what's our selling price going to be?
930.
18.6.
And then
Well, unit cost is 930, so selling price is going to be what?
1860.
1860. What about for product B?
That's 0.4.
Okay, so 50,000 divided by 20,000 is 0.4. So what's our total unit cost?
About 40.
540.
And what's our selling price going to be?
1620.
1620.
So that's all we're doing in this chapter. We're doing the same thing with direct materials and direct labor. Same thing. But then with the overhead, we got one overhead that we got to split between the products and then do the same thing. Does everybody see what we're doing? Okay, so let's go down in-class problem. So on the in-class problem, we have 4 books. We have 4 books. And so you got to do the same thing, get the activity rate. You got to get the activity rate for 4 books. So we're just working with labor hours. I want you to do the same thing. I want you to calculate the activity rate. Then you're going to go through and come down here and come up with the unit overhead cost. And then you're going to come up with the total cost for principals, intermediate, advanced, and tax, as you were doing before. So our difference now is that we have 4 books rather than 1. We have one overhead, which is 200,000. We have one overhead, which is 200,000. So given that situation, I want you to do the first part of this, which is give me an activity rate. Then come down here and allocate. Now you should have this handout. Allocate the cost. Allocate this 200,000 to each of the books. After you allocate the 200,000 each of the books, put your quantities in to come up with the unit overhead cost. After you get the unit overhead cost, you're going to do what we just did. For principals, what's total unit cost, selling price, and the POR. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to go through and come up with an activity rate. And then once we do the activity rate, we're just doing principals. We're going to come down here and come up with the overhead cost of principals. We're going to fill this information in for principals. Can we do it? Are there any questions? Since there are no questions, start off. So I want you to start out and come up with the activity rate. Are there any questions on how to get the activity rate?
What's the title of this of the assignment of this?
This is the in-class problem. that we're working on today. And so today I just simply want everybody to calculate
Oh,
the
okay.
activity rate. If there are 4 books, can you do it? Man, what would you suggest that they do?
To start out,
Yeah, pretty obvious. You aren't given the labor hours, you got a calculator. How many labor hours is the principal's book going to take?
2,000.
How you get 2,000?
It says labor hours 2,000.
So how would you get to 2,000? I mean, you can make 10 per hour. So if you got 20,000 to make, you divide 20,000 by 10 and you get 2,000. So I may have had it on the insert, but now I want you to know how to do it. You got to do that for each book. Then get the total labor hours, then bring that down here and get an activity rate. Does everybody know what we're doing? Okay, so I'm going to give you how many minutes you need to get this activity rate. 5 or 10?
10.
All right, you got 10 minutes to get the activity rate. And you all can talk to each other. How many hours for intermediate?
3,000.
How many
15.
hours for advanced?
10,000.
10,000.
10,000.
How many hours for tax?
10,000.
10,000.
You multiply tax because it's 2 hours per book.
What's our total hours?
25,000.
25,000.
And we simply can copy this information, put it down here, put our 200,000 in overhead down here. So what is going to be the activity rate?
8.
8.
We do.
How do we get 8?
We divide.
Divide what?
200,000 is
Overhead by the total amount of hours.
Are there any questions by anybody on that? What about it, Hicks? Any questions? Are there any questions? Can everybody do that? So our goal is to get this 200,000. So let's go to the principles book now. And so now what are we going to do? We're going to bring down these hours. Then we're going to bring down our activity rates. And we're just going to work with principles. So if the activity rate is 8 and the hours is 2,000, what is the quantity? Well, how much overhead we're allocating, first of all? What's going to go on line 3?
16,000.
Okay, so 16,000 is going to go on line 3. That's the amount of overhead we're allocating. What is our quantity?
20,000.
So what's our unit overhead cost?
We're gonna
28.
divide 0.8. We're gonna divide 16.
It's point eight.
Yes, that's going to be 0.8. So now we got to fill out this chart to come up with the unit cost, selling price, and POR for the principles book. So I'm going to give you all about another 7 or 8 minutes to do that. Are there any questions on any of this so far? Are there any questions on these hours, or the activity rate by anybody? Then we just said we work with principles and we came up with 0.8. Now I want you to go through and just for the principles book, give me ink, paper, and labor, unit overhead cost, total cost, selling price multiple, selling price, and the POR. You have about 8 minutes to complete that. Okay, how much is the ink for the principal's book?
20.
20.
How much is the paper?
10.
How much is the labor?
1.
One. One.
How much is the overhead?
80 cent.
Point eight.
Point 8.
So our
Point
total
eight.
unit cost is what?
31.80.
31.8. 31.80.
Selling price multiple.
2.
2.
So what's our total selling price?
63.60.
63.60.
63.
360.
What's our POR?
8.
8.
Where do we get the 8 from?
From the activity rate.
So the POR and the activity rate are the same. So are there any questions on how we did this for the principal's book by anybody?
No, not for me.
Okay, so go through and complete intermediate, advanced, and tax. So I'll give you all about 4:51, about 5:05, and then be ready for a quiz on this on Tuesday. Just this part of it, so I can make sure you understand it. So at this point, I want you to follow the same process. You got an activity rate. You now got to do it for the intermediate, advanced, and tax book, and then come and complete this. Does everybody understand what they got to do? Are there any questions on any of these numbers for principals?
No.
Okay. So let's go ahead now and finish the intermediate, advanced, and tax book. We're doing the same thing, what we were doing with one item, but we got to get that overhead allocated to each book and then complete this. So let's take about 15 minutes and see if we can finish these two charts. Okay, how are we coming?
Good.
What is the unit cost for the intermediate book?
Is it 6360?
What about for advanced?
It's
98.
98.
What about for tax?
146.
146.
131.
146.
It's 146.
Uh-oh.
146.
You multiply.
Yes, 146.
Oh, you multiply it. Okay.
Yeah. When it's per
Thank
hour,
you.
you divide. When it's hours per, you multiply.
Okay.
So we said the
Thank
tax
you,
is
Leanne.
146. So
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
if it's per hour, you're going to be dividing. If it's per
Okay.
book, you multiply.
Okay.
Per hour, divide. Per book, multiply. So what we've
Okay.
done at this point is come up with our unit cost, selling price, and predetermined overhead on each book. I'm gonna let all of you fill this in so you'll work with it, but you know the numbers you're working with and get your selling price multiples. Now let's see where we're gonna go. what you're going to do this weekend. This weekend, these are the assumptions. The company purchased ink and paper. The company would have purchased all of that together. Then each company has a stage two, a stage three, and a stage four. Each company, and this is the information, well, each book, excuse me, and this is the information, and we're given the overhead, total overhead. Now, our goal is to come up with a cost of goods manufactured statement in total simply by adding the four companies together, and a cost of goods sold in total adding all four companies together. To do that, to do that, we have the company books where the ink is bought, the paper is bought, and then we pay the manufacturing overhead and record the over under. So these items are made at the books at the company's level. Then each book goes through stage two, where journal entries are made to transfer in the cost to make the book, raw materials ink, raw materials paper, labor, and overhead. Then we transfer the finished goods based on the number that are completed, and then we make that sale. And when we make that sale, uh, we debit the cash, credit the sales, but also a debit to cost of goods sold and a credit to finished goods. We got to do that for the intermediate book. Then we got to do it for the advanced book. Then we got to do it for the tax book. And in each case, we're posting to the ledger. But notice that there's a working process for each book. There's a working process for principals. There's a working process for intermediate. There's a working process for tax. And then there's a finished goods for principals, a finished goods. So each one of these, uh, you know, there's a T account uh, for working process and finished goods for each book. For cost of goods sold, we just do one T account and have everything in here. Manufacturing overhead, one T account, and for sales, one T account. So once we get the information in the T accounts, then we're going to be able to come back and prepare these statements. And remember, we said whatever is in work in process is utilized to prepare the statement. We put each company in, total them out. For cost of goods sold, we just go to the cost of goods sold, total amount. We will have to put in our over and underline. And that's all we're doing in this chapter and with this problem. Are there any questions? So can you all finish this problem by Tuesday?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So we'll finish it
So,
by,
Dr. Boyd, Dr. Boyd,
yes,
excuse me. Are we is we just spinning off from this problem that we just worked in class? It's the same problem.
correct. Same problem.
Okay.
But now we gotta,
Okay.
so we did it for one book last chapter, we're doing it for four. And what you'll be
Okay.
prepping for is a quiz, probably with just two books. So you're going to be prepping to do a quiz with just two books. But we're working harder, we're over preparing by doing four books. Quiz will have two books.
Okay.
Any questions?
So, just to clarify, everything that we had did today,
is going to be on the quiz on Tuesday, correct?
Well, that's the preliminary. That's just an attendance quiz for what we did today. So I want to make sure that everybody can do this with 2 books.
Okay.
Then we'll go through and make these journal entries and get these statements prepared. So we've made assignments. So now hopefully you see, you know, what we do. And we know it was new last time in the beginning and everything, and we couldn't record it. But now you should have a taste of what you're doing. You're simply doing 4 books and adding them together. And you got to just separate that overhead out. So this is not the hardest thing to do. One of the easiest things. Last chapter, as you were introduced to doing 1 book, it was difficult, but you learn how to do it. So now you simply have 4 books you got to do and add them up. Okay? So we'll try to have office hours at 6 on Monday. And as I said, I'll be on campus on Tuesday. And I'll do the class from my office on Tuesday. So I think I'll be able to share. So I'll be in my office on Tuesday doing the class. Is
Your
enough
office
in my office?
is 273, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Across from the restroom on the 3rd floor.
So
So
class on what is this? Tuesday is online
it's
or in
online,
person?
but I'll be in my office.
Okay.
And we can come
Now,
to your office if we want to, correct?
correct. I'm saying you can be in the outer
Okay.
area and see we'll be doing the same thing as we're going to finish working this problem. So I can, people will be online, they'll be working, then I can come and work with the people who are in the office. So we'll be doing it both ways. But this should not be the most difficult thing that you've done in this class. Is that correct?
Right.
Correct.
Okay. And you need to be telling me what you're going to make. You need to be telling me what you're going to make. Somebody made this last time. It's 25 points on the project when you tell me what you're making. So you put it on a PowerPoint. So I'll probably have something in there for those to be submitted. So in the project, it follows off what we've done. You've got to make something and then do some budgets around breaking even and making $1 million on what you got there. So we'll be talking about that and going over it. You can work individually or in a team. That's up to you. Any further questions? If not, have a pleasant weekend. I'll try to be in office hours on Monday at 6. And if I'm a couple of minutes late, that's just because I'm in office hours with Principals 1 at 5 o'clock and they're on adjusting entries. And so if I'm a couple of minutes late, that'll be the reason. Then on Tuesday, so on Tuesdays and Thursdays, will be on campus. And if we have enough people, we'll go to the classroom. But the classroom the equipment there is just a little old, but we can make it work. Okay, so everybody have a pleasant weekend and we will see you all on Monday and Tuesday. Have a
All
good one.
right. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.